Hello, good morning and welcome to Newsdesk. We're live on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 125. Across all our social media handles, we're Joy News on TV. Coming up, Korle-Bu Teaching Hospital CEO apologizes to dialysis patients for recent shutdown of the renal unit as the hospital rolls out a raft of measures to expand treatment. Also coming up, independent power producers demand legal review of all existing power agreements over the $134 million judgment debt. And later, the Ghana Institution of Engineering asks political parties to boost capacity of technical teams in district assemblies, as well as support district, municipal and metropolitan chief executives to fulfill technical roles more effectively. We'll be engaging them here on Newsdesk. Please take a seat and be my guest. Thanks for choosing us. We're home of independent, fearless, incredible journalism. Now we start with the Korle-Bu Renal Unit because they will soon run at optimum efficiency with the procurement of 30 new dialysis machines. In an interview with Evans Mensah, the chief executive of Korle-Bu Teaching Hospital, Dr. Pokuwari Ampoma, revealed that government has settled the $4 million debt which had contributed to the unit's challenges. Despite delays, steps have been taken to airlift essential consumables, and 30 new dialysis machines have already been procured, with 13 more on the way. Dr. Ampoma has been detailing measures to keep the dialysis units alive. He apologized also to the renal patients for the recent shutdown of the unit.
We are still owed some outstanding supply of dialysis machines and other equipment. And so they've given a firm assurance that they are going to bring in another 30 machines. Also,
in addition to the 30 you are getting.
In addition to the 30 we are getting, from the Minister of Health. These ones are still, the particular by the closed system. So, but at least it's still an additional capacity that we are going to have. So with that we can rehabilitate our old dialysis unit. Because the original dialysis unit was on the second floor of the medical block, or the first floor of the medical block. That was the original dialysis unit, and because of most of the machines they had gone into disrepair, so that place is closed. So with these machines coming, we can immediately also reopen that unit so that we can have more options in terms of dialysis services.
So you're going to open an additional unit?
Yes. No, I mean, this was the original unit, okay, and then the dialysis cabin, what we are using now, was an addition. So this was the dialysis cabin we opened it about, I think, 2.5 years ago. So
that's what it's in use now. So when you say you've reopened, that's what you've reopened.
That's what we reopened. So that's what we.
The original place is not functional as
because the machines there were not working. And of course because of the control arrangement, because we're entitled to get some servicing, some these machines that we are talking about were supposed to have been supplied. From 2017, but they were not supplied. And, since I inherited this as the CEO, we've been engaged in a lot of back and forth trying to make sure that these machines are released to us. But unfortunately, we're not making any headway. But thankfully, we've had a breakthrough now. And so those machines are going to come on board with other equipment, dialysis chairs and tables and reverse osmosis machines and things like that, which are ancillary equipment that make the dialysis service more efficient. And so we believe that with this breakthrough and with the good news from the Ministry of Health, I think that we don't want to revisit this issue, so we want to get a permanent solution. But I'm also happy to announce that sometimes there's a saying that when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. So there's a silver lining in all this, in the sense that all this dialysis that we are talking about is one form of dialysis, which is called hemodialysis, where your blood, your veins, are connected to the machine. The machine filters the blood. But then there's another form of dialysis called peritoneal dialysis, okay, which is popular in America and other places, okay, where you have a fluid, okay, and a special type of fluid. And so that fluid is introduced. So a catheter is inserted in the person's abdominal wall. So this catheter is regulated by the person. So the person introduces the fluid into the abdominal cavity. And so the intestines are very vascular. They got a lot of blood. So the exchange, the fluid, an exchange happens. So the toxins are passed into the fluid that you would, you release into the abdomen. And then after a while, they open the valve and then the fluid is drained out. And they can go about their normal duty. So also, patients are taught how to do this. So when they're given a supply of fluids, what they do is that before they go out, they just, insert get the fluid in there, wait maybe an hour or so, 30 minutes or an hour, and then they drain the fluid out, and then it's clear their system of, the waste products, and then they can go about their normal duties. Okay, so but the reason why we're not able to provide this service was that we didn't have access to those that type of fluid in Ghana, and because the fluid is heavy, how much, what quantity can you ship, and the cost of shipping, so the price will be very unreasonable. So we're looking at the option of getting a local manufacturer, and thankfully Atlantic Life Sciences, who are a pharmaceutical company, on the road to Ada, so they came on board and have started producing the fluid, So now that they're producing the fluid, they are teaming up with some of our renal physicians and a team from the US to start, a trial in terms of on the local to see how this will work. So once they've done that and done the validation and so on, look at the sort of challenges, how we can address those challenges, we will be able to roll out, what we call peritoneal dialysis, because that now becomes another viable option, because in the end it also works out cheaper than the hemodialysis. So
this will require the patients to sit for 4 hours.
Exactly. This will require the patients, and they can do it in the comfort of their own homes.
So you can actually do the dialysis in your home.
Yes, exactly. So you are giving your supply of the fluid. So you have to know the quantity. So you insert the quantity introduce the quantity to the catheter into the abdominal cavity. Wait for the exchange to happen, and then you drain it out, and then you are good to go. Okay. So of course there are some. Of course we have to make sure that the patients are well educated on how to do that and all. Of course patient selection is important and all. But this also gives us more options, so that not everybody has to now rush to a health facility and go and queue, to undergo dialysis. So that is the silver lining in all this.
When is the timeline for this rollout?
They've already started production, so they're going to now start because they're now going through before you can do some of these things, you have to get ethical approval. So they're going, because before you go, you can't just go and run an experiment on human beings without, so they are going through the ethical approval processes, FDA, and the institutional review boards and things like that to get the approval. So once they do the trial and they come out and the results are validated, then we can start rolling this out. Yeah.
So there you have it, 30 new dialysis machines will be coming into the Korle-Bu Teaching Hospital. I'm sure that's good news to the Renal Association. Let's broaden the conversation, bring in the president of the Renal Patients Association, Bafo Kojo Ahingra. Thank you for your time here on News 6. Well, the Korle-Bu CEO there, we've heard, he has given assurance that the facility will be opened to more patients now that they have procured about 30 dialysis machines. It comes as good news to you, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a very welcoming news. And that is what we've been praying for all this while, so that we don't come and waste much time here. Sometimes you just have to wait for a very longer time before it gets to your turn, before it comes. So if there will be more machines at our disposal, whereby we will not be queuing, it's a very welcoming news. And we really appreciate the effort they are putting in to assist the patient.
Now, we know that given the recent challenges, what measures would you like to see implemented moving forward?
Yeah, I would like to let them understand our situation, that our life depends on this dialysis machines and the consumables. So in and out, whereby mostly shortage of consumables, I can say way from last year, around May, the unit was closed for 6 months, all because of these consumable things. And then this year too, it has been in and out. I mean, sometimes you come this week, the following week, there's no consumables. the following week they get. So it has been in and out. We are just pleading with the authorities. Like he's saying, as I was listening to him, I think the stores and whatever they need to do, because I believe Korle-Bu have a stores that they keep these consumables. And day in, day out, they check those kind of things. So if the goods are running out, we don't have to wait for it to get finished before we try to get new ones. So in and out, they should be checking and try to always restock the stores so that we can go through it smoothly. Because life depends on it. Life depends on these machines. Because most of the people cannot pass urine. So they come there and they do dialysis to be a bit free. So we pray that they should look at the consumables factor for us.
Now, we know, let's get a little update. We know that recently the National Health Insurance Authority told us that they'll be helping with some of the cost of dialysis for patients among special groups. Have you already heard from members of your community? Have they started benefiting from that?
Yes, we've started. I mean, it started before the shutdown recently, but so now patients are now enjoying that subsidy that the government brought. But the appeal we want to put across is that we beg government. Now you can see that where the people are enjoying the free dialysis, children below 18 and then elderly above 60. The numbers are not there. I can speak on authority that Korle-Bu, the children below 18, they won't even reach 10. When you go to the above 60, I'm not sure they will even reach 50.
But that's just at Korle-Bu. I'm sure we have hospitals scattered across the country with different numbers, and I'm sure that's why they're considering that. Unfortunately, we've lost connection to Kojo Balfour. He was just giving us updates on government new measures to help ease the burden of patients receiving dialysis, and we lost connection to him. I'm hoping I have better connection to you, Kojo. Unfortunately, I don't. So we'll work the lines and try and get that back. But the Chamber of Independent Power Generators, they are demanding a thorough legal review of all existing power generation agreements following the latest default on judgment debt ruling by a court in the United States of America, awarding a total of $111.4 million to oil giant Trafigura's Ghana Power Generation Company, plus a mandatory interest. Now, already Ghana's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Papa Owusu Ankoma, confirmed to Joy News that one of the country's prime commercial properties, the Regina House in London, has been taken over by Trafigura Ghana Power Generation Company owing to government's failure to settle 134 million judgment debt. Well, let's listen to them and we'll be back with more.
Order gives the management of the property to GFTDC's solicitors or property appointees until the debt is paid. They cannot even sell the property. They haven't even applied to sell the property to defray the judgment debt. So for him to allege that we've not been truthful to the people of the country is very, very unfair. I've never said that. So in the context of the application for charging order in respect of private property of the government of Ghana, and I have them here. It was in 6 Courtly Gardens, London, 109 Millway, London, Regina House, Cheapside, 42 Kenneth Crescent, London, and 24 Wren Avenue. And then when our solicitors asked us, as custodians of this property, what the properties were being used for, we said that the 4 properties, Courtly Gardens, Millway House, Regina, Kenneth Crescent, and Wren Avenue, were being occupied by employees of the government of Ghana who are diplomats. It was not be subject to any charging order. So to say that I said no properties were under threat, well, he's putting words in my mouth. That's not correct, and go further on saying that I would not be truthful to Ghanaians. It's not fair.
In a more detailed breakdown of the implications of this default on judgment ruling, Imani Vice President Bright Simmons says more of Ghana's assets could be targeted as a result of the terms of Ghana's agreement. He is also taking on Ghana's High Commissioner to the UK over what he sees as diplomatic misstep.
The problem arises. One, the power plant was not excessively expensive. On a per unit basis, the capacity charge or the capital recovery charge of 3.7 cents per kilowatt hour was very similar and in many cases lower than what we're charging or we're paying as capacity charge to other plants. And you can see on the screen a number of power plants that for all of these we're paying more than this plant was going to charge us.
Absolutely.
So I've given you examples of them. You know, we're paying for Senate 4 cents on a capacity charge basis, Sen Power 5 cents, etc. And car power more than 5.6 cents. Secondly, the notion that we have excess power has itself been contested, as you know, because now we know the government is still signing these power deals.
Right.
Right. And around the time we were still signing these power deals, the companies like AXA that have already signed another deal very recently to put a power plant in Kumasi, Nawomaso, etc. So these were questionable. The energy but here is where it gets important, and this is why we have a judgment depth. The analysis on which the decisions were made were shoddy and flawed. The Energy Commission Executive Secretary, for instance, suggested that terminating the plant would cost the country about $80 million, but he hadn't done his due diligence. He didn't actually look at the full range of costs that were being incurred.
Meanwhile, the minority in Parliament has signaled its intention to get the Ministries of Energy and Finance to come to the House to address pressing questions about the mounting judgment debt involving the country and oil giant Trafigura.
Devastated. I am extremely devastated. I'm devastated because we have been ill-served by parochial interest. And in a way, I believe we have not handled these judgment debts well. We have not highlighted them enough. These are avoidable debts. When government decided to abrogate the contract, I warned that, you see, every contract has a process of abrogation. You make room in the contract for termination. But if you do not follow the termination procedure, then of course you run into problems. That is one. But more importantly, the reasons for the termination of this particular contract. One of the major reasons the then minister cited in his letter of termination was that Ghana Power Company, Ghana, which is a subsidiary of Trafigura, had not obtained the necessary licenses from Energy Commission, etc. My recommendation moving forward is that whichever government comes to power in January 2025, and I believe the NDC will come to power by the courtesy of the good people of Ghana, we must probe all such judgment debts and find and establish culpability, and public officials who let this country down should be asked to pay for it.
Well, to prevent such scenarios in the future, independent power generators say Ghana must adopt a more strategic and disciplined approach to its contractual agreements. They argue that should this go on, it should also include thorough legal review of all existing IPGs, ensuring that any amendments or terminations are handled with utmost caution and respect for agreements in the first place. Well, coming up on your screen shortly would be that statement they put out. We'll also be speaking to the CEO of the independent power generators Ghana shortly. But let's read part of their statement, and it says, to prevent such scenarios in the future, Ghana must adopt a more strategic and disciplined approach to its contractual engagements. Now, this includes a thorough legal review of all existing IPGs, ensuring that any amendments or termination are handled with utmost caution and respect for the agreements in the first place. They also say the inclusion of dispute resolution mechanisms such as arbitration clauses in future contracts can also provide a more structured and less adversarial means of addressing disagreements. They say, furthermore, Ghana should consider setting up a contingency fund specifically for managing judgment debts and other unexpected liabilities. They say this fund would provide a buffer, allowing government to meet its financial obligation without jeopardizing payments to critical sectors such as the energy sector. Well, let's get more on this. Joining us now is CEO of the Independent Power Generators Ghana Association, Dr. Eliplim Kwabla. Thank you so much for your time. Now, let me understand your initial recommendation. What's the problem with a legal system that we are already enjoying?
Thank you very much. Listening to Dr. Kobina Donko, I think he has pointed out clearly the sanctity of the power purchase agreement. There is absolutely nothing wrong with our legal system, but my position has been that we should, as a country, maintain the sanctity of contracts that we have, particularly the power purchase agreements. These are international contracts or projects funded outside the shores of Ghana with complex interests or many interests attached to this kind of agreements. Before I sign any power purchase agreement, mind you, I have committed myself to a lender, I have committed myself to a sponsor, I have committed myself to a shareholder, I have committed myself to a supplier. So all these interests come into play before I step forward to sign any agreement. So government must follow the amendment clauses, termination clauses, as expressly stated in the agreement. This is not an agreement or document that is imposed on government, or it's not an agreement that is imposed on the off-taker. It has been fairly, and it is always fairly negotiated. I put forward my risk profile, you put forward your risk profile, and we come to a meeting point. So at no point in time should any government or party unilaterally get up to court and show that I want to terminate or I want to do an amendment to the contract that we have, unless there is a consensus between the parties involved, so that we avoid any potential consequence, any potential judgment at the end, for us to all be at peace and continue on our investments.
In the case
a
of
situation where we
Trafigura,
have this kind of interference from a host party or a host government, it actually raises the risk profile and discourages investment.
But what happens when government has been advised to do such? For example, in the case of the Trafigura situation that we're facing right now, it was a recommendation from the AG.
A recommendation from AG, like I stated, I expect the AG to study the contract, the existing contract, what has been signed off. What are the conditions that may necessitate termination or abrogation? What are the required procedure, agreed procedure for such actions to be taken? Do engage experts that can thoroughly advise on the consequences of such termination and abrogation. I mentioned that so many interests come into play to sign a power purchase agreement, especially in the case of a project finance. So I do not expect the Ministry of Energy or the Ministry of Finance to rely absolutely on the advice from the AG. This is a specialized sector. Despite the legal understanding, it is a specialized area with a specialized expertise that needs to be followed.
You're also asking government to ensure that any amendments or termination are done with utmost caution and respect for the agreements in place. What do you feel is accounting for this default posture of government?
Well, like I said, to prevent or avoid the consequences of the abrogation, caution must be taken. That's why I refer to the fact that we have termination clauses, we have amendment clauses that must thoroughly be followed for everyone to be at peace. Don't assume that you have the political power. For that matter, you could call the short or attempt expropriation. It is a very high-risk venture that can have direct consequences on the best of the economy. As it
you have to position rightly. We seem to have lost connection to you. Eliklim, I'm hoping I will get you back. He's just giving us the thoughts of the independent power producers. I have better connection to him now. Eliklim, thank you for staying with us. Please make your point and then we'll explore further.
The risk or the IPPs that are struggling to get our money to pay, otherwise our assets.
Unfortunately, we're losing connection to you, Eliklim. We just wanted to make that point. And then moving forward, I would like you to also expand on one recommendation you're making in your statement. You say Ghana should consider setting up a contingency fund specifically for managing judgment debts and other unexpected liabilities. I'd like to get more on that. I'm hoping I have better connection to Eliklim. Do I? Unfortunately, I've lost him. Well, let's do other stories now. We'll work the lines to get him back. Have terrible connection today, unfortunately, but our technical team, they're working on it. Well, the Ghana Institution of Engineering is calling on political parties to make infrastructure a key priority in their manifestos. Among their top recommendations are the need to boost the capacity of technical teams in district assemblies, as well as support district, municipal and metropolitan chief executives in fulfilling their technical roles more effectively. While they're also pushing for more investment in mass transport systems, aiming to have 80% of all person trips in urban areas covered. A major part of this would be developing and running a bus rapid transit system to ease movement in our cities. Well, these suggestions came out of a communique after their recent town hall meeting. Well, we'll give you details after this quick breather. Do stay tuned with us. Well, thanks for staying with us. Now, we have less than 4 months to 2024 general elections, and political parties are putting out their manifestos seeking to buy in your vote with their policies. Well, the Ghana Institution of Engineering, they also have some recommendations for political parties as they look forward to the election. And we'll be delving into that this morning as we have in the studio the president-elect of the Ghana Institution of Engineering. He is Ludwig Hesse, and also Engineer Joseph Ode. He is the immediate past Civil Division Chair of the Ghana Institution of Engineering. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you.
Here on NewsDesk. Now, before we get into your recommendation, which I've been going through, one key issue we always face, especially in Greater Accra region, are floods. And so I'm thinking, as an institution, what are your recommendations to political parties? What key policy can they put in place in their manifesto that can help us address this issue?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, flooding is an issue in Accra here and in other places in the country. We currently hear that the north is getting flooded also for different reasons.
Yeah.
But yes, we need to put in flood attenuation programs. There are ongoing programs. There's a Garrick program going on already, and it appears to have all the elements of what needs to be done. We've left a lot of things too late because one of the key things is to there are places which are prone to flooding and they should be led as flood plains so that water can be retained, so that they are released gradually so that you don't flood the bigger places, the city center and things like that. But unfortunately, we have developed a lot of those places. But still, this program is trying to salvage what is left and leave those places. And our prayer is that these programs get implemented the way they've been designed. The other thing is we are too quick to line big drains, especially when they are on the upstream. The more lining you put into drains, the faster the water travels, then it gets into Odo and floods Accra. The other thing is that we are also paving too much our houses. It's urban development. We are supposed to leave green spaces in our environment, in our houses and things, so our water will go into the ground and charge our aquifers. But now somebody builds a house and he puts terrazzo in his house. And the water falls from the roof onto the terrazzo and straight onto the street. And that comes straight to Odo or Peshi or anything and floods the place. And it's just because somebody is not enforcing the regulations on how you should develop your whole home. You cannot build a home and put terrazzo on every space in your house. No, it's against the law.
And that's the job of the district assembly.
That's the job of the district assemblies. And if they are getting these things done properly and getting people to just respect the zoning regulations, then we are carrying off less water. Some of the water. Now, the other way is also rain harvesting. If people can harvest some of the rain that falls on their roof and put it into the tanks in their houses. Again, it's part of the flood attenuation processes. So it's not everything about building drains. In fact, most of the time when you build drains, you are making the water carriage more efficient. And when you make it more efficient, that means it's going downstream where there's not adequate capacity to flood. So the district assemblies and the government system should ensure that these things happen. And there's no two ways about that. The rains will continue to fall, and the water will be carried if we don't store them, if we don't allow it to go into the ground, and it will flood. And we can throw a lot of money at these things, but if we don't do all the small pieces, put them together, then the people at the downstream end will continue to suffer.
Another key concern I have is with the sighting of our buildings. As a pedestrian, each time I have to compete with the vehicles because I'm walking on the shoulders of the road because somebody has built a shop on pedestrian walkway. How do you propose government implement policies to fix some of these concerns?
Yes, in fact, this is also one of the issues we did discuss during our manifesto series. We're talking about how to manage urban spaces. So it all boils down to the assemblies who are the custodians of development. We believe that we need to enforce some of these things to ensure that there are enough space, or we provide spaces that will promote livelihood. You know, for example, you saying you're walking, you should be able to walk freely without any such interventions, right? So this is one of the recommendations we are giving to the political parties, that they should resource the assemblies very well with technical capacities and capabilities so that they can also enforce these plans that they have in place for various areas to ensure that people, transport, they don't have these kind of unnecessary interactions, to ensure smooth sailing of programs and effectiveness of our societies.
Well, but is it the case that there's lack of resources to help them enforce some of these measures? Or is it the case that they are complicit?
Well, the lack of resource probably may not necessarily be money, but we're also talking about the technical resource. Yeah, that's what we are interested in. And also, because the law gives the assemblies the power to ensure that there are proper development in various areas, they should be pushed to do the right thing. They should ensure that they enforce what is needed. And therefore, we still go back to the assemblies, encourage them or telling them that, look, this is your mandate, let it happen.
Wow. So I'm looking through the proposals you're making to the political parties as we speak. And one key proposal you are making is the enforcement of approved plans, zoning regulation, and sanction violation of the planning regulation with landowners selling land in accordance with the zoning plans. Expatiate on that for me.
Well, probably that's the fundamental of all those things. Urban development starts with a plan. Unfortunately, in that situation, a lot of development starts without a plan. without approved plan. But if there's an approved plan, then somebody has taken the city, subdivided into various uses that the land can be used to. And this is brought to the assembly and it's approved as a development plan, as a zoning plan, as a scheme that anybody who wants to develop beyond that will have to follow. Now, so the first responsibility of the assembly is to ensure that when it says that this place you can build a church there, so nobody goes to build a market. If it says that this place is for housing, nobody goes to build a factory there. So when you talk about zoning, when we say this is a green area, a park, nobody goes there to build a church. You see, so when you've zoned a place, that this place is a green area or this place is a flood prone, it's a flood zone, it's a place that water will collect, a place where you want it to be remain as a swamp. You design cities with all this in mind, and when you zone them for it, we should not allow people in the name of development to flout these things. And that's the first role of the assembly. And so the assembly should feel empowered to retain these things and enforce the zoning regulations. That's the first thing.
We have existing zoning regulations.
We do.
But the challenge now is with enforcement.
Enforcement is one of the key areas. So the capacity of the assemblies to enforce must be enhanced. Because if we don't enhance it, then it's not just having the police abaye, but we are also looking at the technicalities involved. Who are the technical people who are thinking through the processes before we go to enforce? And if we have to go to the courts, will the courts support the proper enforcement of these things? Sometimes we allow these things to get out of hand. And then when they get out of hand and you go, then it's like you are competing against people's livelihood. And it's like Galam say, when you appear to enforce and your enforcement is against people's livelihood, then the people, if they have numbers, they have adequate numbers, they rise up and resist. And then the politicians being who they are, and because they want votes, they tend to treat this with kid gloves. And then our systems break down. So one of the key things is that when we do these things, we should not allow things to fester before we try to come and clean. When it festers and you try to clean, the surgery is too painful. And when it's painful, people are likely to cry. And if you are affected by whipping of a child, you stop treating the infested heel, and then we die more.
Yeah. Fair point.
Yeah.
Even to add to what you just said, that we want the public to know that buying land or acquiring land does not necessarily mean you can do anything that you want. It has to go through an approval process. So you can decide to buy a land and say you want to put up a church, but in terms of the spatial planning, maybe the place that you bought the land, it's not an approved place to put a church. But the challenge we have now, you see, development goes ahead of this kind of, before the assembly realizes somebody has put a church there, stop work, that kind of thing. I think we need to be serious a bit to have a very well-functional society.
You also make mention of the fact that you're proposing that some of the political parties consider in their manifesto, for example, investing into mass transport systems with the aim of contributing to up to 80% of all person trips in urban centers in the country. And you say this should also include the development and operation of a bus rapid transit system. How would this system work?
Well, okay. What you quoted at the first part, which talks about 80% person trips and things like that, actually is a quotation from the transport policy of Ghana, which was launched in 2020.
Wow, so it's in existence.
The transport policy is in existence. This statement that we should invest into public transport that carries up to 80% of all person trips in our cities is a quotation from the policy document of government. And I've worked in the government system on these issues before. And it was in the 2006 policy. It was in the 2010 policy. It was in the 2016 policy. It's in the 2020 policy. Yet we do nothing about it.
So it's all talk and no action. And this begs the question about what do we do now?
Yeah, yes, the point is that, again, it's as if it's not as though nothing has happened. Again, in 2008 to 2016 or so, we decided as a country to invest into this. So there was an urban transport project. I happened to work under that project, and then I left a little earlier. But the output changed completely from what we started with. And then we came with the Ayalolo idea. And this is Ghana. The whole Ayalolo thing with GAPTI, Greater Accra Passenger Transport Executive, the institutional processes were all put in place. But we just messed it up. We decided that we're going to buy 2,400 buses instead of 80 buses. We came to put the buses there, and we did some few priority links for buses to go through. Then we allowed the traders to go and trade on those spaces and the trotros to block it. And the whole Ayalolo system didn't work. It collapsed. And meanwhile, the BRT system, which is well thought out, is that provide large buses a reserved lane to drive on, and nobody else should share that lane with them. They carry them, that's called mass transport. They carry the masses of the people. Majority of the people then will go on the main route, like from Accra to Adenta or from Accra to Kasua. You have these buses running on reserve lanes, like a railway line for them, and they run to and fro, and they have their stops where they stop and people can pick them, and they carry the mass of the people. So if you decide to stay driving your car and stay on the other lanes, and you are in congestion, it's your business. But the buses will run faster. And that's why it's called a bus rapid transit system. And then it comes with all the other additional things like the ticketing system, which is like how you buy ticket to leave and enter a train, how you board. You can bring your platform of boarding at the same level as the bus so that you roll in and out. People on wheelchairs can roll in and out. So that boarding is efficient and all those things. And these systems are operating in other places.
Okay.
Look, in Ghana, in Accra, more than this 80% we are talking about probably is happening already, because the trotros and the taxis and all the other things we have is carrying this number of people. But they are doing it so efficiently because we are using small buses, we are using taxis,
so we
and
should
we are
expand
plugging
the system. And so that's very key for me. As we wrap up the conversation, I'm being told we're running out of time. Some of these concerns you have raised and some of these policy proposals, have you given it directly to the political parties so that we can get some commitment moving forward? I'll wrap up with you.
Yes, we have. In fact, before we did our program, we've already, it's a whole document, we've given it to the political parties to look at it and then tie it up to their, manifestos. So we have,
Thank you so much for your time here on News 6.
Too.
My producers say you have to come back because this conversation is one that would like to expand upon. Now let's do other stories now as we wrap up here on News 6. The Volta Regional Chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Makafui, has dismissed claims by the NDC's flag bearer that the NPP is using propaganda to win votes in the Volta region. He stated that the people of the Volta region recognize the NPP's focus on development and are aligning with the party. He made these remarks while addressing the press in response to what he called false claims by Mr. Mahama. There's more in this report.
The flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, during his tour of the Volta region, accused the governing NPP of using propaganda and financial inducements to win the hearts of the people of the Volta region. In a swift response, the Volta regional chairman of the NPP, Makafui Wanya, refuted Mr. Mahama's claims, explaining that projects undertaken by the government in the region won the hearts of the people. He mentioned, among others, the free SHS policy, the Agenda 111 project, the UHAS Phase 2 expansion project, the Ho-Sokode and Eastern Corridor Roads project, the Keta Water Supply expansion and rehabilitation project, sports infrastructure development, and the Teman-Pakadan railways.
With the about facts and the demonstration of projects that the NPP has undertaken in the Volta region, as against the total neglect and abysmal performance of the NDC under Mahama, when he had the opportunity to rule this country, it should not be too difficult for Mahama and the NDC to understand why the people of the Volta region, particularly the youth, would want to identify with the NPP and why the fortunes of the NDC is dwindling. Times have changed, and the people are now wide awake and will demand accountability from politicians and political parties rather than blind faith and religious attachment to the NDC. The changing trends are neither due to propaganda nor financial inducement, Mr. Former President.
Mr. Wanya also questioned Mr. Mahama's intention to describe the Catapult project as a political gimmick.
The issuance of an executive instrument declaring the Qatar area as sports zone is laudable, an invitation to the global community. Visibility studies have been concluded, and advertisement for the expression of interest has been published, contrary to what Mahama said. The construction of the office complex is ongoing, so it is disingenuous and shameless for a former president to describe such efforts as 419 and a container office. If he was interested, he would have visited the site to apprise himself.
He further indicated that the NDC is solely interested in votes from the region and not its development.
The Volta region has never been part of his strategic considerations. Our region is only important as long as it serves as a reservoir of votes, nothing else. His assertion that Voltarians are now voting for the NPP because of propaganda and financial inducement is insulting. The other day, when he visited Tebi, he told our people that each time they finish voting, they go and eat akule and sleep. This comment is in bad taste. The worst of his derogatory comments about the Volta regime is when he described the NPP manifesto as worse as akule and vegetation, the staple food of the Voltarians. Why? We call on our chiefs and leaders of the NDC in the Volta region to demand an unqualified apology from the former president.
Mr. Wanya concluded with a stern warning to the NDC to brace itself for further dwindling of its electoral fortunes in the Volta region. Fred Kwame Asari, join us.
Well, it's time now for business, and Winston joins me in studio. Winston, what's happening?
So in business, we go to the United Nations, where they are development, especially in training the best capacity in the country.
Great.
Great. Now it's time for business. My name is Winston Taki, and now to our first business story. The United Nations University Institute for Natural Resources in Africa is extending support to urging young innovators in Ghana to design solutions that will address the needs of smallholder farmers and entrepreneurs. The United Nations reports that women farmers, especially who account for a significant majority for subsistence crop production sector, are faced with socio-economic disadvantages, posing significant dangers to food security in the country. However, under its Innovate for Clean Agricultural Technologies project, the UN University is bringing together innovators across Ghana to collaborate on closing the gap. There is more in the following report.
Development program has rated smallholder farmers as contributing to about 80% of Ghana's entire agricultural output. However, women farmers, who account for a significant majority of the subsistence crop production sector, are faced with disadvantages that are socio-economic and cultural in dimensions. In a bid to tackle some of these challenges, the United Nations University Institute for Natural Resources in Africa, UNU-INRA, is bringing together green entrepreneurs to incorporate the need of smallholder farmers.
This capacity building workshop is very important because we are bringing together the green entrepreneurs to sort of inform them about what we discovered during our baseline study, the specific problems that the women farmers face, so that they can bear that in mind when designing their technologies. It's important to encourage young green entrepreneurs because obviously it solves the problem of unemployment. But beyond that, specifically looking at the agricultural sector, we know that 50% of small agro farmers are women, and a lot of their work involves a lot of drudgery. So to curb this problem, we need to have green entrepreneurs on board to be able to design technologies that meet their specific needs.
The project is receiving support from green entrepreneurs who say they are learning more about the needs of farmers.
We are in a community that maize is a prominent crop over there, and I wonder why in an age of technological advancement, farmers still harvest manually. And they became tedious all the time. When you are going to school, back and forth, you always see them stressing and all that. So it made me come up with this idea to actually help them with our combined harvester.
I applied for the InfoCat Innovation Challenge because I believe as a young person, when you start an idea, it gets to a point where you need some level of support, technical guidance, and even financial guidance. And I believe this offers a great opportunity to scale up and increase and put to the point where what we're already doing can get to a stage where it is commercialized and can reach a lot more people. So I believe that this is like a perfect opportunity to just keep pushing.
InfoCat should be able to impact them by the time they are leaving. I'm quite excited to be part of this. Really, it's the right thing to do, and the timing is also right. And I'm happy about the attendance, the enthusiasm, the young ones who have shown up. I'm really happy. And
going into the future, the Institute for Natural Resources is hopeful that InfoCat will also close gender gaps for women who form the significant majority of Ghana's agricultural sector.
Moving on, Kumasi Central Prison has decried the dilapidating state of a building used in training female inmates in hairdressing. The structure is over 30 years old and poorly equipped to meet its intended purpose of equipping inmates with valuable vocational skills. The authorities have called for support to reshape and retool the building to enhance skills training.
The Central Prison receives skilled training while in prison as part of their reformation process, but the Salon Training Center needs urgent rehabilitation to meet the needs of the inmate. Assistant Director of Prisons, Beatrice J. Esiedu, says the building is over 30 years old and all the installed training equipment are outmoded. She revealed this when the Parent Teacher Association of Yasantua Girls SHS donated food items to the prison.
Our salon, where we teach them hairdressing, the equipment are out of date, the building is dilapidated, the structure is very, very old, over 30 years old. So we wish that somebody will come and assist us to expand the salon and give us the state-of-the-art equipment so that our salon can be one of a class. We also want to say that where we learn the tailoring, where a company has come to build a shop for us, they have equipped that with machines, but some of them have broken down. We wish to have replacements so that the training can be successful.
She emphasized the need to offer skills for inmates.
When we give them the training, which is called the rehabilitation activity, when we give it to them and they are going out on discharge, usually they go bare hands because we don't have the tools and the equipment to give them a startup capital. So
that'll be all for business. For more news, visit myjoyonline.com/business. As you can see, MPA revokes licenses of 13 OMCs over debt repayment. Now, over to you, Fosti.
Thank you, Winston. And that's it for News Desk. My name is Faustina Safa. I'll be back at 2 p.m. with Election Brief. Have a pleasant day as you enjoy the rest of our programs.